When you set sail in Wuthering Waves, you quickly learn a few key things. Ultra buffs are like a sudden wind at your back, pushing you forward with some serious power, but they're also as fickle as that same wind disappears the moment you change directions or swap characters. Yet, steering your ship or swapping characters is the best way to wither these waves. It sounds counterintuitive since you lose the Ultra buff when you swap off characters, but the truth remains that this game promotes quick swap gameplay, since it heavily increases your damage. As you build your Concerto gauge, quick swapping enables very optimal gameplay, since you can have two characters on the field at one time. You can weave in your Echo Cast and skills easily while cycling through your team. However, once that Concerto gauge is filled, you will trigger an Ultra buff, which will make you reconsider changing characters. For some characters like Encore Cheesia and Havoc Rover, their Ultra buffs do a nice chunk of damage, so you don't have to worry about cancelling a buff or anything switching halfway through. But for other characters, and by other I mean half the entire cast, they have Ultra buffs that do massive buffs. From Sanhua's 38% basic attack amplification to Yinlin's 25% liberation damage bonus plus the 20% electro damage amplification. The trade-off for obtaining these buffs is that you can't swap characters or you will lose that buffs. In the early stages of Wuthering Waves, like pre-release, this was not the case. The Ultra buff remained on characters even when they swapped off. This change alone is what made a character like Calcaro fall behind, and you have to wonder, have Ultra buffs ruined the freedom of combat in Wuthering Waves? I'm Void Enigma, and I'll be diving into this topic. Let's see if Ultra buffs being restrictive have helped balance the gameplay, or if it was an unnecessary change. The buffs in Wuthering Waves are by far the most liberating thing about this game. Like the copium that your favorite character might be alive in a manga, these buffs remain active for the entire duration even when you swap out. Using Resonance Liberation will pause the time on all these buffs, and you can swap out your characters and the buffs will remain active. This is true for almost every buff besides Ultra buffs. Ultra buffs, on the other hand, is finding out that that same character who everyone thought was dead but was actually alive 150 chapters later and completely revolutionizing the entire manga. It's kind of like that but more temporary. Okay, I kind of went off topic there. But the Ultra buffs are some of the most powerful buffs in the game regardless of your preferred playstyle. You will have to take advantage of these buffs to beat the Tower of Adversity and other hard content in this game. There is but one restriction put on place of Ultra buffs, and that is this specific line: until they are switched out. Oh, Kuro Games, why was this line included in the Ultra buffs? Let's quickly talk about quick swapping, the secret sauce to make content a delicious treat in Wuthering Waves. Quick swapping characters allows you to use two characters at one time if you swap them out mid-animation, and once you master it, it will almost feel like you're cheating. The time saved doing one of these quick swaps can be massive. It may just seem like 1 to 3 seconds saved, but this adds up over the duration of combat. Take Chun-Li's Flame Sacrifice for example. You can let the animation play out, or you can swap characters to get an extra damage, faster energy regeneration, and more Concerto gauge while Chun-Li is finishing her attack. It's a win-win. If you're using someone like Zheji to buff Chun-Li instead though, Chun-Li is forced to stay on the field during this entire process, limiting the Concerto gauge and energy regeneration for your other teammates. If you were able to swap off, you'd be able to get Chun-Li's next rotation much faster, since Zheji and Verena would be pre-buffered for their Concerto gauge to enable quicker gameplay, thanks to being able to be quick swapped. And not only that, if you have a monster trying to eat your character's succulent, juicy ass, a quick swap is like pulling the tablecloth from underneath their dinner. A smooth and stylish maneuver which will leave the monster completely missing their attack. Plus, intro skills often have an added bonus of moving your character out of harm's way, which is pretty damn handy. Sometimes, however, things need to be smashed, and the like button on this video is one of those things. No need to avoid it. Go ahead and like this video as this keeps the channel alive. Now that we've done that, let's get back to ways to avoid damage. Dodging by using swaps will leave the character on field to finish their action, leaving them completely immune to damage, and the enemy may already be targeting them with their powerful moves. But beware. This is a skill that requires some finesse, because you don't want to swap into the monster's rage by mistake. Especially with someone like Verena, she's all about quick swaps, but using her intro skill might leave you right in the line of fire. Yinlin, on the other hand, is a queen of quick swapping, with Chun-Li and Zhe not far behind her. Truth be told, until Chun-Li came out, I was not reliant on any quick swap techniques. I would stay on one character and do all of their stuff until their Concerto gauge was ready, and then swap to the next character for the buff. This was mainly because I used Jian, who really doesn't need to use quick swaps for his gameplay. The same can be said for someone like Havoc, Rover, and Ling Yang, who do great with just Sanhua's buff. Even these characters can greatly benefit from quick swapping. This is just speculation, but one can say that Calcaro was a victim to the Ultra buff being removed. In fact, he is 100% a victim. Poor Calcaro is a prime example of how the removal of the Ultra buff affected gameplay. He used to shine alongside Yinlin with quick swaps, but now, not so much. His Death Messenger used to make quick swaps almost overpowered, letting you deal dual DPS and then some, but without the Ultra buff, his damage just doesn't hit the same. So Kuro Games took a different approach of handling quick swaps and outros. If you swap off of a character when their outro is triggered, you will lose that buff. Hence, it's more beneficial to stay on the character to get all of their damage, instead of continuing to play two characters at one time with quick swap techs. This works great for a character like Chun-Li because she can quickly capitalize on every single element of her kit thanks to the Ultra buff. If you're careful to stack up her gauge, you can quickly get off an enhanced Flame Sacrifice, followed by a Liberation, and then another Flame Sacrifice. Every big hitter in her kit can be taken advantage of during the duration of these buffs if you time it properly. This makes the combat and gameplay much more engaging, but you have to focus on the character's core mechanics, the Concerto gauge of all of your characters, as well as the boss that you're fighting. It can be difficult to keep up with everything, especially when you are fighting a very difficult boss. It will take a ton of practice because you don't want to accidentally trigger an Ultra buff at the wrong time, and then waste the entire buff because you actually swapped off. In the end, Kuro Game has slightly restricted gameplay, stopping certain characters from abusing quick swaps and dominating the battlefield. Quick swap techniques will still boost your DPS significantly, and mastering them will make you a force to be reckoned with. For casual players though, it's a steep climb, but Wuthering Waves isn't exactly built for the faint-hearted. Personally, I think leaving the Ultra buff active would have added more depth and reward for those willing to master the mechanics, but hey, quick swap mastery is its own reward, and it's so satisfying when you pull it off seamlessly. So what do you think? Should Ultra buffs have stayed, or is this limitation better for the game's longevity? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I still really enjoy how Wuthering Waves plays, and managing your gauge and ults is challenging, but fun. But wouldn't it have been awesome to keep those Ultra buffs for the full duration? Like this video if you found it enjoyable, as that is the easiest way to show some support for the channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more Wuthering content in the future, and this has been Void Enigma, and until next time, Enigma out.